Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pat's Pulpit pregame show. We are here to talk about the New England Patriots' upcoming game against the Carolina Panthers. I am here, as always, with my good friend Alec Shane. Alec, how you doing?
I am doing just fine, my man. It is a beautiful day for football. It is week 4. We're creeping into October. It's almost time to get out the pumpkin spice nonsense, and it's almost time to go apple picking and all the other stupid things people do instead of watching football. But not us, Rich. We're home in front of the computer talking sports the way God intended it.
Oh, absolutely. And before we jump into the Patriots and Panthers, there's a few pretty interesting games happening this week. I don't know if I'm going to call them good just yet, but they're important games. It seems like this is the week where the league's really kicking off with a bunch of the divisional games. We saw the Thursday night game between the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. The Packers won to move on to 3-1. But there are a lot of other divisional games that are taking place. You got a Steelers-Ravens game going on. You have Titans-Texans. You have 49ers-Cardinals. I don't know if people care about that, but you got Raiders and Broncos. This is probably going to be an important week for teams to really separate themselves in the division. They're going to get their legs underneath them. We're 4 weeks into the season. Teams are going to start showing who they are. Alec, do you think any teams will be able to really assert themselves as a real contender after this week?
It's funny you asked that because we kind of touched this in our podcast earlier in the week. This is a very interesting landscape in the NFL this year. Everyone seems to be 2-1. Everyone is kind of mediocre, flashed really good at times and kind of stunk at times. And so certain games, I'd like to think that there's a chance for some teams to really separate themselves. Titans-Texans, I think is a good example of that. Those are two teams that are very enigmatic right now. I'm not sure where they stand. Looking forward to Steelers versus Ravens. That's always a good game, divisional matchup. However, the Steelers aren't that good apparently, and the Ravens just got spanked by the Jaguars, who are playing the Jets at 1 o'clock. That should have been a snoozer. A little intrigue now, both big wins from each team. So I'm looking at the slate of games today, and I'm not even sure what to expect about, I would say 80% of the games, I have no clue what's going to happen, which is weird.
All right, I'm going to run through some of the games right here, and I'm going to have you tell me whether or not you care about this or what you think, like have the one tweet takeaway for each of these games. So starting off, Saints-Dolphins. Saints are 1-2, Dolphins are 1-1. What do you think?
How about just like Drew Brees and Jay Cutler line up at the same time and they just take turns throwing go routes to their receivers? That would save everyone a lot of time and defense is a lot of trouble.
Yeah, the Saints got their first win of the season last week against the Panthers, who the Patriots are playing. The Saints offense looked pretty good, but generally the Saints have a terrible defense. The Dolphins lost to the Jets. Should not be a very, very defensive game. I think we'll see a lot of points out of that one. Next game, Bills-Falcons.
Tell you, this is a good game for the Falcons, who are the only NFC undefeated team right now. The Bills are currently first place in the AFC East, and it's almost October, and that can't happen. So let's go Falcons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Falcons have escaped the past 2 games. Luckily, fortunate calls, but, they're 3-0. Bills are coming off of a pretty impressive win over the Denver Broncos. So are the Bills actually good? We don't know. We'll find out. I'm going to guess that the Falcons are going to kind of run away with this one pretty early on. Next game, 2-1 Steelers, 2-1 Ravens.
Again, this is probably the game of the week, in my opinion. The Ravens have to bounce back. You can't lose 44-7 in London to Jacksonville and then drop a game to the Steelers in convincing fashion. So I think the Ravens come out and put a beat down on the Steelers today.
All right, so my thought, Steelers lost last week to the Chicago Bears. Ravens lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who are these teams? I think that with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we know that Ben Roethlisberger is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league when he's on the road. Really, really striking numbers. I believe his passer rating drops from something like 108 at home to like 80 while he's on the road, and that's Brock Osweiler level. So they'll be on the road against the Ravens. We'll see which Ben Roethlisberger shows up. This game, someone has to win. 0-3 Bengals, 0-3 Browns.
Yeah. I can never in good conscience pick Cleveland. How can you ever pick Cleveland to win a game ever? But the Bengals are terrible. It took them almost 3 full games to score a touchdown. This might be one of those like 9-3 Cincinnati games, 9-3 Bengals I'm going.
Yeah, I think this should be a game where the loser gets relegated to the college football ranks and, Clemson or Alabama gets bumped up or Ohio State. This game, let's switch the Cleveland Browns for the Ohio State Buckeyes because this is just not good. So I don't think we'll have too much to talk about with that one. Next game, sneaky fun. Rams, Cowboys, both are 2-1.
Yeah, the Rams are scoring points at will this year. And the Cowboys had a good performance against the Cardinals on Monday night. Terrible against the Broncos. That's another team I'm not exactly sure where they stand right now. And as you round into that second quarter of the season, I think this is an important game for both teams. Cowboys to show the NFC they're legitimate, and the Rams to show the NFC they aren't fluking their way into these massive victories.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jared Goff has one of the best passer ratings in the league right now. He's throwing passes to Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. He has like a very, very solid group of receivers. Their defense, they have Wade Phillips. You know, he always has a great defense, and now he gets to play with having Aaron Donald back there. I think the Rams are a sneaky good team if they get good coaching, because anything is an improvement over Jeff Fisher. I think we're really seeing that Fisher was holding this team back just with the most unimaginative play calls ever. Next game, Titans-Texans.
Yeah, this is an intriguing game. I have Steelers and Ravens as the most interesting game of the week, but this is the most intriguing game of the week. The Titans are kind of good, and the Texans took the Patriots down to the wire on the road, and they had a convincing win before that too. So these are two teams that could be really neck and neck in the AFC South coming up. So this could be a potential tiebreaker scenario. So I'm sure both teams will bring it today.
Yeah, and if the Titans win, they'll be 3-1. Texans will be 1-3. That's a 2-game lead, and I know that's not insurmountable. Lots of things can change over the course of the season with 12 games to go after this week. But this could really give the Titans a solid edge early on. Maybe the Texans will say, you know what, maybe we can't rely on Deshaun Watson, or we'll be fully committed to him. I feel like there's a lot at stake here with these two teams. It will be in Houston, so that should be interesting. Next game, Lions-Vikings. Both of them are 2-1.
I do not care about this game in the slightest. I have no vested interest. I guess maybe Sam Bradford's going to be back. I like the Lions. I like Matthew Stafford. I'm going to root for the Lions, but I am not going to tune into this game at all.
I feel like this is a game with two, ice cream vanilla rosters. It's just like, who really cares? Matthew Stafford's highest paid player in football, sure, but I feel like the excitement isn't there. I feel like both teams have quality players. I think the Vikings have very good players on defense. They have two of the top 3 receivers in the league as it comes to yards with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. So they've been producing. I just feel like I don't know if they're in the NFC, so I can't really care too much. I just feel like the hype isn't with what they've been producing on the field. Maybe that'll change as we move on to the season and they prove that this is something they can sustain. But for right now, I don't know. I'm still just shrugging my shoulders. I feel like they're like the NFC version of the Titans and Texans. This game you touched on a little bit earlier, Jaguars-Jets.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd asked me in August which game I'm going to be least excited for all season, it would be Jaguars-Jets. However, given that both teams came off pretty convincing wins they probably shouldn't have had, or at least nobody saw coming in week 3, I'm curious to see what happens. Can McCown be a legitimate quarterback against a surprisingly – are the Jaguars good, Rich? Can I say that? Are the Jaguars a good team this year?
I think the Jaguars have the highest point differential in the league right now over the Chiefs, which part of it's due to them winning 44-7 against the Ravens. But I think they're good. They're not bad, and they have a great defense. They've invested so many resources into it. Jalen Ramsey, their cornerback in his second year, has declared that the Jaguars have the best defense in the league. That's something worth monitoring. Leonard Fournette is running the ball well. Blake Bortles isn't making mistakes, which is the highest praise we've been able to give him his entire career. And I'm still rooting for the Jets in this game. I know that's a little crazy. I want the Jets to win. I want them to get to 2-2 so they don't get that first overall pick, just because that would be the most Jets thing they could do is just take themselves out of the running by continuing to win and finishing the season 5-11.
So let me see if I have this correct. So the Jaguars have the highest point differential and Blake Bortles is not making mistakes. The Houston Texans have a decent-looking quarterback who's making plays. The Tennessee Titans are right now the favorites to win the AFC South. And
I think they just beat the Seahawks.
And the Colts are bad.
Woo! Go Colts.
All right, I'll take it. What a crazy landscape we have in 2017 in the AFC South. Who'd have thought?
Everything's coming up Patriots in the AFC South there. Next game, this is one that I just care negative amounts about. 0-3 49ers, 1-2 Cardinals.
Yeah, I love Larry Fitzgerald. He's probably my favorite player in the NFL, not on the Patriots. And it's always good to see him succeed. He had a pretty good game against the Cowboys on Monday night. But other than watching Larry Fitz add to his Hall of Fame statistics, I'm not going to care either.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the 49ers are a team that just have not much for people that aren't 49ers fans to care about. You know, as you said, Larry Fitz, we at least care about him a little bit with the Cardinals. You want to have, his Hall of Fame career just continue to go. He's still producing. The 49ers, Pierre Garçon, he's like the most national name they have on there. Navarro Bowman, I guess, if you want to talk about the defense. But this is just a game I don't care either direction. Another game.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You blacked out for a second. What did you say, Rich?
All right, so the next game on the list is the 2-1 Eagles on the road against the 0-3 Chargers.
Again, this is a game I probably wouldn't have cared about had the Eagles not won a last-second 60-plus yard field goal from a rookie. So they've kind of got my attention now. I hadn't watched a single snap of Eagles football, but I'm interested to see how they can bounce back from this. I don't understand how the Chargers are bad every year. They seem to have good players at every single level of the field. They have a potential Hall of Fame quarterback in Phillip Rivers, Hall of Famer in Antonio Gates. They have good receivers, good running backs, decent corner. They just can't win games, and I have no idea why. And they'll probably lose again to Philadelphia, and I can't explain it.
Yeah, I feel like these are the two teams that have underachieved the most during the entire run with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. The Eagles made, 5 straight conference championships, or, they've made 7 over that span of time. Chargers had the best record with, LaDainian Tomlinson for a huge stretch. They had a great defense with Sean Merriman. They got nothing to show for it on either side of the register. I feel like if Bill Belichick ran either of these teams, they would both have had, 3 or 4 Super Bowl titles over this time frame. This is going to be another game where who's going to disappoint the most at the end of this game? I'm kind of rooting for the Eagles to win on this one. First off, I want the Chargers to have a worse record than the Jets. That would be really nice to see. But also, last week, Eagles, they had a rookie kicker connect on a 61-yarder as time expired. I'm rooting for him to do it again just because that was super exciting to watch. Really happy for him. Carson Wentz, the quarterback, made a bet. And he was caught on audio because he was mic'd up saying, if he makes this kick, I'm giving him my game check. He made it, and I think he's upheld his side of the bargain on that one. So that's pretty cool to see. Yeah, go for it if you have something to say.
No, I think, isn't Carson's game check like $95,000 a game, something like that?
It's pretty high up there. I think most of his money is based off of his signing bonus. It might be something closer to like 50,000 or something like that. But you know what? It's still a nice chunk of change. That's a hefty bet to make. Next game, 0-3 Giants against the 1-1 Buccaneers.
The Buccaneers, I'm going to be watching this game just for scouting purposes. They play the Patriots next Thursday night. It's a short week. Another mobile quarterback. I haven't really seen much of Jameis Winston. I'm curious to see how he's developing as a quarterback. I know Mike Evans is a dangerous receiver, but I don't have a whole lot of game tape on the Buccaneers yet. So I'll be rooting for the Buccaneers because I will never root for the Giants in any capacity ever. But I want to see them use a lot of their playbook so I can start kind of scouting them for next week's coverage.
Yeah, I have no idea how the Giants are 0-3. That's my big question. How are the Chargers so bad every single year? This is a Giants team that has all of the talent on defense. They have talented players on offense, along with Eli Manning. I don't want to count them out. I don't want to say that Eli is on the hot seat or whatever should happen, because that's just, evoking the wrong feelings with the Giants team for them to finish 9-7 and win a Super Bowl. But I'm confused with how they are not good. And this game should reveal a little bit more. Hopefully, same thing. I hope Buccaneers win so the Giants go 0-4. That would be the most Jetsy thing ever, too, is if both the Giants and the Jets finish the season with terrible records, but the Giants get to pick ahead of them and get that quarterback of the future. That would just be fantastic to watch. Another game, which could be one of the more exciting ones of this week, 2-1 Raiders at the 2-1 Broncos.
Yeah, this is a suddenly good game. Both teams coming off of pretty unexpected, pretty embarrassing losses to supposedly inferior teams last week. I'm taking the Broncos in this game just because of the home field advantage. I believe the game is at Denver. Denver's a very tough place to play, and the Broncos probably need this game, this bounce back, more than the Raiders do.
Yeah, I think whoever wins this game, hopefully it'll be a statement for them, because this could be a case with two paper tigers out there. The Raiders have had a bad defense. Are they actually not a really competitive team? Are they more in like the 8-8, 9-7 level? And then the Broncos, What's up with their offense? Can Trevor Siemian be the quarterback that they need to be? Was last week a fluke, or was what he had been doing beforehand more indicative of what he's capable of? These will be pretty important questions to ask. Sunday Night Football. 1-2 Colts at 1-2 Seahawks in a surprisingly not fun or impressive game to watch.
Yeah, seriously. I might not watch this one either. Obviously pulling for the Seahawks. I've always liked the Seahawks, even when they're playing the Patriots. They're a fun team to watch. I don't really enjoy Pete Carroll's coaching style and how much he celebrates every time anybody gains any yards, but just different. Apples and oranges, Carroll and Belichick. And I just love watching the Colts do poorly. It's just ingrained into my system, even though they haven't really been a Patriots rival in several years now. And I'm rooting for Brissett to do well, but
yeah. I'm rooting for Jacoby Brissett to put together, a 3-touchdown game, 400 yards, and to still lose to the Seahawks. Just, have the Seahawks do what they need to do. They don't have an offensive line. I really don't think that they're going to be a threat moving forward unless some miracle happens for them. They've seemed to be a wild card team that gets knocked out in the first round, whereas the Colts are just nothing. Who knows what they'll be. Final game before we start talking about the Patriots and the Panthers. 2-1 Washington at 3-0 Kansas City.
In my opinion, the Chiefs are the best team in football right now. They have the most complete offense, the most complete defense. Alex Smith is playing well. He's still not going to take you to Super Bowl. You're not going to do well in the playoffs with him, but I can definitely see the Chiefs being the 1 or the 2 seed. They already have the tiebreaker over New England because of that Week 1 matchup. The Redskins, they just beat the Raiders, so maybe they're more of a team to be reckoned with. I don't know. I think last week was kind of an anomaly, so I see the Chiefs going to 4-0 this week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that this week we'll see both the Chiefs and the Falcons move on, stay undefeated. They have 2 pretty solid matchups. I think that seeing the Chiefs as that number 1 seed in the AFC will be interesting to monitor. Maybe they'll have a second half of the season swoon. They won't have Eric Berry. I don't know. I've been really impressed with Kareem Hunt at running back. This is probably one of the most together Chiefs teams we've seen under Andy Reid. I thought that they would miss the loss of Jeremy Maclin more than they have, but I also didn't expect Kareem Hunt to be the next coming of LaDainian Tomlinson. So maybe he'll come back down to earth as well, and maybe the Chiefs' offense will start to stall. But until we see any sign of slowing, I think that the Chiefs are the team to beat.
Agreed. I do. However, the team that's going to beat them is going to be the Patriots. I'm confident if they see each other again, it'll be a Patriots win. But before we get there, it is a Week 4 matchup against another mobile quarterback in Cam Newton. Panthers coming to town. The last time these two teams played was 2013, I believe. Ended on some controversy that's been bubbling up around the media this week. Some pass interference that was picked up, the flag picked up, and Brady screaming at the ref on the way out. What do you think, Rich? Early impression of this game? Are you worried about the mobility of Cam Newton, or is the offensive woes and the injuries in the Panthers too much for this Patriots the Panthers to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind when preparing for this game was last week against the Houston Texans. And all of the Patriots defenders said the same thing immediately after the game, after they faced Deshaun Watson. They're like, we think that Deshaun Watson is going to have a great career, and we have a player that's very similar next week in Cam Newton. So the Patriots were very, very aware of their upcoming schedule. They still believe that Cam Newton can do what he was doing in 2015, even though we haven't seen it in 18 different games. They still think that he's capable of it. When you look at this Panthers team, though, they're injured. They don't have tight end Greg Olsen. Kelvin Benjamin, while he was a full participant in practice, took a pretty scary knee injury last week against the New Orleans Saints. This Panthers offense last week, Cam Newton threw for 167 yards and 3 interceptions. 101 of those yards went to running back Christian McCaffrey. My thought when I was watching the Texans last week was that they had DeAndre Hopkins that they could throw the ball to, and then they had a running back, whether it was Lamar Miller or Deontay Foreman. I thought the same thing right now with the Panthers, where they have Devin Funchess or Kelvin Benjamin. I don't know if he'll be 100%. And then they have a running back in Christian McCaffrey or Jonathan Stewart. Last week, the Texans just went wild on this Patriots defense. I don't want to make that same mistake twice. And I think that this Panthers offense could be sneaky productive against this Patriots defense, just because the Patriots have allowed the second most receiving yards to running backs in the NFL. And I believe that the Panthers are going to give the ball to Christian McCaffrey a lot and have him try and make defenders miss in space, because this Patriots defense has been a big problem.
They've been a very big problem, especially on those checkdowns, those underneath routes. The middle of the field, the kind of middle third of the field has been wide open. They're not getting pressure after 2 or 3 seconds. It's more like 4 or 5 seconds. The pressure starts to come in, and a player like Cam Newton can avoid that very easily. We already saw it the last time these two teams played, and we saw it last week with Deshaun Watson. And the real question I have is, if the Patriots really have the personnel to match up on a mismatch style running back like a Christian McCaffrey. You know, coverage linebackers has been kind of an Achilles heel for this Patriots team. Dont'a Hightower has been practicing on a limited basis. Not sure if he's going to go, how effective he's going to be today. So do the Patriots really have the personnel to cover a running back without dedicating a safety or a cornerback to him, which could free up those bigger receivers you talked about?
Yeah, and the big question as well is, will they dedicate another one of their 2 linebackers that they have on the field to spying Cam Newton? Because that's something that they've done in the past. And if you do that, then you have both of your linebackers dedicated entirely to making sure that Christian McCaffrey and Cam Newton don't get out of the backfield. And that's not a team defense. You know, that's assigning these individual roles. It's showing a lot of man responsibilities that could allow Cam Newton to get into a rhythm with the passing game. I don't think that they can afford to do that. If I'm Matt Patricia and if I'm Bill Belichick, I'm going to put a safety on Christian McCaffrey, just because we've seen that linebackers get in so much trouble, whether it's Cassius Marsh against Kareem Hunt. I know that he's an edge defender, but he was playing linebacker at that role. We saw Kyle Van Noy get beat last week against Lamar Miller out of the backfield, or who I think was Dante Foreman, actually. But we've seen these linebackers really struggle. Dont'a Hightower's coming back from his injury. I don't know if they feel comfortable, even if he was at 100%, in him covering Christian McCaffrey. That's something that like a Jamie Collins would have been responsible doing. If I'm the Patriots, I say, Dont'a Hightower, you stay in the middle. You spy Cam Newton. We trust you to do that. The Panthers will be without center Ryan Khalil again, so that means that there might be some blitz opportunities up the middle, which is Hightower's forte. But I put Patrick Chung in the box and say, your job is just to shadow Christian McCaffrey, make sure he doesn't get free anywhere. And this is going to be one of those 3 safety games for New England where Devin McCourty covers the tight end, Deron Harmon's the guy deep.
So Belichick's defense, always what they do is they take away your best player and force you to beat them with your other 2, 3, 4 guys, whatever it is. Are you going to classify their best player or that guy they game plan out of the offense, Christian McCaffrey? Is he the guy you're worried about the most?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Bill Belichick will give his respect to Cam Newton. But if we're being honest with ourselves, he's not been the same Cam Newton. I wrote this article that Cam Newton is no longer Superman, which is what his personality was in 2015. He put the entire team on his back, and they reached the Super Bowl. They lost to the Broncos, but he was able to do it all. He was finding players with worse talent than they have right now, but he had that shoulder injury last year. He had off-season surgery, and he's still not 100%. He's been battling an ankle injury, so he's not as mobile as he was. I believe Chase Stewart of Football Perspective wrote this article showing how Cam Newton's been running the ball less than at any other point in his career right now. And so, yeah, you have to appreciate the fact that he can rush. Maybe you do that mush rush. You don't sell it out. You don't let Cam Newton escape the pocket. Offensive engine right now is Christian McCaffrey. He has 246 yards from scrimmage. He has 73 rushing, 173 receiving. He's the player that they'll try to find. They'll line him up at receiver. They'll put him in the backfield. He's such a jackknife for that offense that the Patriots need to be aware of where he is at all times, that Marshall Faulk type of player that can do it all. Patriots need to make sure that he gets no free releases, because that will really help that defense get into a rhythm and prevent the Panthers from setting anything up on their side.
I think with him being a rookie, that favors the Patriots as well, because he's still getting his feet wet in the NFL, doing a great job so far. Definitely got to leave credit where credit is due, but it is a little easier to confuse rookie with defensive looks and coverage mismatches. So, and I'm also sure that Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey haven't quite developed the chemistry they will develop as the season, the time goes on. So I'm curious to see how it goes. I think you're absolutely right. Another thing the Patriots have had trouble with in the past couple of weeks is defending tight ends. Texans did it. The Chiefs did it. They have 2 active tight ends on their roster who are listed as tight ends. There's Chris Manhertz, great name for a tight end especially, 6'6", 255, big guy. And then there's Ed Dixon, who's about the same size, but he's a little older. Is there any way that the combination of Ed Dickson and Chris Manhertz will run wild to the Patriots, or is this the week they finally get it together in defending tight ends?
Well, you have to hope so. The Texans are different because the two tight end set is kind of a staple of the Bill O'Brien offense. They really love having that Steven Anderson, Ryan Griffin duo out there. They would prefer to have the CJ Fiedorowicz Griffin duo, but Fiedorowicz is out with that head injury. So the Patriots had to always be aware of where these tight ends were, and we saw Devin McCourty get in trouble with coverage a few of those times. Ed Dickson is less of an athlete than either of those. So both Griffin and Anderson are more of those wide receiver players. They don't really inline block. I believe actually Anderson was technically a wide receiver at Cal. They had him bulk up an additional like 15, 20 pounds to play his move role with the Texans. I think Devin McCourty will have a much easier time covering Ed Dickson, or, if they use Patrick Chung, so be it. Ed Dickson's not a threat. If it was Greg Olsen, then the Patriots could be in trouble, because you look at the rest of this Panthers offense. Kelvin Benjamin is 6'5", 230 pounds. Devin Funchess is 6'5", 230 pounds. Add in Dickson, and then, Manhertz. You got a basketball team out there with Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. And so I think a more interesting or possibly concerning problem for the Patriots defense is who's going to cover whom, especially with Kelvin Benjamin expected to start. And so you have Stephon Gilmore, who should be out there. I think Eric Rowe gets the other start. Hopefully he'll be healthy and 100% for the entire time, because I don't want to see 6'5" Devin Funchess in coverage by Malcolm Butler, who's 5'10" when he's on stilts. So that's going to be interesting. I hope that people don't really start saying, like, is Malcolm Butler benched again? I think that this, more than any other week, is a case where the Patriots just say, you got to take the L on that matchup. That's not something that Butler's going to win at. We'll find a different player for him to cover. Christian McCaffrey, that could be something worth watching too.
No, I agree. Even when Butler was playing at his best, he always struggled on the outside against big receivers. He did his best, but he's shorter. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the most muscular guy. He gets out muscle. That's not a knock on him. So even when he was playing at an all-pro level, which he's not this year, a player of Kelvin Benjamin's mold, the Brandon Marshalls of the world, the Demaryius Thomases, those guys have always given him trouble. I think that's why they brought Stephon Gilmore in, to be a better job at covering guys like that. So maybe Malcolm Butler gets not relegated, but shifted to the slot corner this game, and we see Eric Rowe on the outside. I'm all for that.
Yeah, and then Russell Shepard is the slot receiver for the Panthers. We'll see if he really has any major usage. He only has 3 catches for 59 yards this year. He does have a touchdown. I don't think that Malcolm Butler is going to have his name called too much, even if he does take the field, just because I think that is also a talent mismatch in favor of Butler. Alec, do you think that the Patriots defense will be able to handle this Panthers offense?
I think they will, but the big concern again remains, I've seen 0 pass rush so far through 3 weeks, and I've seen last week several times when the Patriots were able to penetrate the backfield and they had Deshaun Watson pretty much dead to rights. And through his own athleticism, which I will credit him for, he was able to sneak out and get away and make plays down the field. And you can't really game plan for that. But Newton and Watson are of a similar mold as a quarterback, and we saw the Patriots get torched by that. So I can see the situations where no matter how good a job the secondary does in coverage, you can't cover forever. And if Newton's given enough time to scramble around back there, could be another long day for the Patriots defense, and could keep the offense off the field as the Panthers seem to dink and dunk their way down the field if Cam Newton keep the play going. So if they can contain him and prevent him from scrambling and extending the play, they should be okay, but that's a big if.
Yeah, and the best offense against the Patriots is, don't give the ball back to Tom Brady, have these extended drives, take 5-6 yards at a clip. Looking at the other side of the ball, you have Tom Brady. He's coming off one of the most statistically impressive performances of his career against the Houston Texans. Carolina Panthers defense, you have to give credit where it's due. They've allowed the fewest yards in the entire league. They rank second in points allowed. They've allowed the second fewest first downs. Opposing quarterbacks for the third fewest passing yards. This Panthers defense has been pretty good. And I will say their first 2 weeks, they played against Brian Hoyer and then Tyrod Taylor of the Bills. And then Drew Brees clearly found a solution, put up 34 points against these Panthers defenders. Do you think Tom Brady's going to continue his role this week?
I do, because I'm looking at some of the stats in the Saints-Panthers game, and a lot of the receivers for New Orleans have longs of at least 20 yards. Kobe Fleener had a long of 21. Ingram had one for 25. Ted Ginn Jr. caught one for 40. Mike Thomas had one for 26. So there's the over-the-top routes are very much vulnerable for the Panthers against their safeties. And with Brandon Cooks kind of coming into his own last week against the Texans, I think this is a very big game for him. He's my offensive X factor today. I think him and Brady are really starting to click. Chris Hogan had a couple of big games as well. So the Patriots have the offensive personnel and the firepower to gain yards in chunks. And statistically, the Panthers are giving that up. So I think that's a very bad matchup for Carolina.
Yeah, and so our Panthers blog, Cat Scratch Reader, they analyzed how the Saints were able to move the ball against this Panthers defense that the other teams were not able to do. And their conclusion was that Drew Brees was getting rid of the ball faster than either of the other two quarterbacks that they had faced this year, getting the ball out to the receivers, allowing them to generate yards after the catch. That's not how the Patriots have been playing offense this year. As you said, they've been finding Brandon Cooks down the field. They've been able to target players deep. They will and should have opportunities, as you said, because the Saints were able to take those deep chunks. Worked because they started out by throwing those quick passes, softened up that that Panthers defense, and that allowed the pass rush to step back because they needed to go into coverage, and that allowed Brees to have more time in the pocket to throw deep down the field. Patriots will have to soften up this Panthers defense, and that's a very, very important matchup because the Panthers have some of the best linebackers in the league. Luke Kuechly is, according to Bill Belichick, the best linebacker in the NFL. Thomas Davis might not play. They're going to, he has been weak. He didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, so we don't know whether or not he'll fully be available. And then they have Shaq Thompson, but a lot of these guys are very, very capable of coverage. And so without Julian Edelman in the Patriots offensive lineup, they have typically leaned on Danny Amendola and James White to be that quick passing offense. James White to stay in the backfield to help block because this offensive line has not been getting the job done for the Patriots. That leaves Danny Amendola out there to carry it. Hopefully he can have a good game because Danny Amendola is my X factor. If he can get going, if he can produce yards, if he can get the early targets, that will open up the deep shots down the field to Gronkowski and to Cooks and to Chris Hogan. That will really crack this game open.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. It's funny. I still have Cooks in my X Factor, but I was very much leaning towards Nate Solder being my X Factor in today's game because, as we know, he has not been good the first 3 weeks. You can only blame so much on missing the preseason and shaking the rust off. He's probably going to be going up against a surprisingly resurgent Julius Peppers, who is 37, I believe, having a very solid year so far. Luke Kuechly is known to blitz in off the edge. They have Vernon Butler, who's a decent defensive tackle. Kyle Love, we remember him. I think he's on the Panthers still. So they have some size and some versatility and some mobility up front. So I'm very curious to see if this offensive line can avoid, was it 5 sacks Brady took against the Texans? That can't happen 2 weeks in a row, especially at home. So if Brady is able to get some more time, I think it should be a very good matchup for the Patriots receivers against an overmatched Panthers secondary.
Yeah, especially with the Panthers secondary, you look at the fact that Darryl Worley probably won't be playing. He missed all of practice the entire week. He's a starting cornerback. He's missed 1 snap this entire year. Tom Brady will look to his replacement, Captain Munnerlyn, one of the best names in all of football. But Brady's going to pick on him a lot, or his replacement in the slot, especially if Thomas Davis is limited. That moves Shaq Thompson over. There's a lot of domino effects taking place with this Panthers defense that could leave at least 1 or 2 spots pretty vulnerable for Brady to take advantage of with Danny Amendola, because Captain Munnerlyn had been in the slot, or the Panthers use Shaq Thompson in the slot, and that's where Danny Amendola makes his money. And if Thomas Davis is limited, then that puts a backup, because Shaq Thompson, they use David Mayo, but Shaq Thompson will probably be a little bit more distracted. He'll have to help out in the middle of the field. And if Captain Munnerlyn's on the outside, then the cornerback will be, 5th string type of guy. So Patriots should and will take advantage of those opportunities out there. Alec, we already touched on the defense, though, but we gave our offensive X factors. Who do you think has to step up for the Patriots on defense?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of just trust Bill Belichick on this one. I'm going to say Landon Roberts is my pick for today. He's been gushing about him all week. The jump he's made between this season and last season seems fully healthy now. I feel like he's got the mobility and the lateral side-to-side movement to prevent any kind of trick play out of the backfield. So I think Landon Roberts could have a big game today, especially if they move Dante Hightower back to the middle of the field as linebacker where he belongs. I'd love to say David Harris is my X factor, but I am kind of giving up on David Harris ever seeing the field because I feel like an idiot every time I say anything about him. So I'll stick with the linebackers and I'll go with Landon Roberts.
Yeah, so David Harris is your X factor. You know,
yeah, he's
no longer
my
your
EX.
factor.
Yeah, he's my EX X factor. Yeah.
Yeah, my pick is Patrick Chung because he kind of got picked on a little bit in coverage the past week. He has been used in coverage of running backs in the past. They used him against Alvin Kamara with the Saints. I think that he will draw a similar role against Christian McCaffrey. And if the Patriots can find a way to really limit McCaffrey's contributions to this Panthers offense, then I think that the Patriots are going to have a pretty solid job of limiting these Panthers drives, forcing them to punt, because I don't think that they could really sustain a drive without McCaffrey being a huge part of that. And so with those in mind, Alec, do you want to get to the game predictions?
Yes, let's do that. I had the Texans losing 31-17 last week. It was an absolute shootout. So my score was a little closer than your score, which means I get to pick this week. I think the Patriots are happy they won against Houston, but they're a little embarrassed on how it went down. I don't think that's the kind of thing that sits well with them. That's the ideal win in a lot of scenarios because it wasn't like a pretty win, and Belichick has a lot of game tape and stuff to yell at them about. I fear the defense is going to want to come back and defend their home field. They're back at home again. Cam Newton's banged up, like you said. He's not as mobile. He's hurt. I think this is a very good opportunity for the Patriots to make a statement and get some confidence back, get some swagger back. I think the Patriots win this one. The offense stays solid. The defense kind of starts to tighten up. I'm going 34-17 New England.
Oh, that's a big game. All right. Yeah, I mean, if you looked at the locker room video that the Patriots post after their victories, it kind of echoed what you just said. Bill Belichick was not thrilled with how that game played out, where he's like, yeah, I'm glad you guys got the win, but it was obviously not a good game by guys. You know, it was just not many to have a step-up type of performance. I think that they can do that. I also think that this Patriots offense is looking to really crack open. We had Brandon Cooks' breakout game. We have Danny Amendola, who's a consistent part of it. We've had Rob Gronkowski and Chris Hogan. I think that James White will be a bigger part of this game. I think that we could see another 4-touchdown, 0-interception game out of Tom Brady. I think that Danny Amendola will pick apart whoever's covering in the slot. I think that the Patriots run away with this one. I know that you said 34-17. I'm going to go with Patriots winning this one, something like 38-13.
Wow, big blowout for the Patriots.
Yeah.
It's very possible because it's been a very long time, Rich, since I've seen the Patriots lose live when I'm there. I will be at the game today. I'm in section 331, I believe, way up in the nosebleeds of the degenerates. So anybody who's out there watching, come by, say hello, and hopefully my streak of seeing him win live continues.
Yeah, and bring Alec a drink while he's out there. You know, hopefully
definitely bring Alec a drink while he's out there.
Hopefully the weather stays lovely. But yeah, Alec, have fun at the game. Do you have any final thoughts?
That should do it, buddy.
All right, you have a good one.
See you, man.